Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. It's very interesting how people's logic changes according to the interest with the goal that you have. You use a logic here and then you use a different logic here, same circumstance, but it just has different actors. That's why the logic could be situational, and that is very dishonest. We have an example here in Ukraińska Pravda, but where don't we? We are all guilty of this, more or less. But you think that once you, go around the block a few times, you understand that and you can immediately see it. But they nevertheless do it because they know that people, how should I put it? They don't break certain kind of ceilings. They get their limit, like we all do, and then we think, oh my God, I have no limits, or I broke my limits. Yeah, you broke your limits all the time, but then it becomes a place where you think there's no more limits, or you think, oh my God, I see everything very clear. Well, because you're so low, you don't see the ceiling, that's why, but the ceiling is out there. So, in this case, Ukraińska Pravda reports on Sunday, the 27th of November 2022, that Russians prepare to transfer their units from Belarus to Ukraine. All right, let's see what could be the reason. Can you guess? Russians are getting ready to deploy several units of their troops from Belarus to the occupied territories of Ukraine. Report. This is reported by General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And I'm quoting. The transfer of Russian personnel and military equipment with the aim of staffing units that have suffered losses is underway. So that means that they are going back, or they go on the Russian-Ukrainian front from Belarus because those guys were depleted of suffered losses. But when those guys were deployed to Belarus, why did they deploy them over there? Because they were not suffering losses? So it should be the opposite. They were deployed over there because the things were going great on the front against, the Ukrainian front. But they never said that. But now they say, oh, they go over there because they are losing things. But if they were not transferred in the first place, that means they were not losing. But you didn't report that one. So this is one example of this kind of thing. Anyway, transfer of troops can happen for various reasons. Not only because of that, which is a logical reason why, hey, we're losing over there, we need to beef up that area. But sometimes troops are not ready for fight, and they get transferred to other locations where they can get training, and then transferred over there. But I don't think they would have to necessarily transfer the troops from Russia. They go northwest into Belarus, let's put it this way, and then they go back southeast. Why don't they stay over there in Russia, and then from there they were deployed wherever they wanted? So why you would deploy them over here and then you take them over there when they're ready? Doesn't make sense. You brought them over there for other reasons. It seems like those reasons are not necessarily valid at this point, and you get them back. Or not get them back. You transfer them where is needed, where you got losses. Now, details. On the 27th of November, the Russians launched 4 missile attacks on civil infrastructure, obviously, facilities in the settlements of Rozumivka in Zaporozhye Oblast and the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Now, this is an update that comes from the Ukrainian side about the front. So they're going to go and list all the axis, fronts where the war is occurring, and they tell you, obviously that's their perspective, that's their reporting, which have to cut it some slack, because obviously they're going to say the Russians are fucked up and we're winning, which the same thing probably the Russians say about their forces, because that's the way it goes. So this is it. It says here that the occupiers launched nearly 10 attacks using multiple launch rocket systems in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast and in the Zaporozhye Oblast. A threat of Russian missile attack on the critical infrastructure facilities is in the hinterland of Ukraine remains. On the Volyn and Polisia fronts, there have been no significant changes and no signs of the formation of offensive Russian units. Belarus continues to support the Russian armed aggression against Ukraine and provide its territory and airspace to enable missile and aviation attacks. Now, as I always said, that's fair game to hit. I would think that it's fair game. If you attack me from that country and you take off with a plane from a Belarusian airstrip, and you take off, you go in the air, release your missiles or whatever you got, and you veer back and you land again in Belarus. Now I think the place where you took off and where you landed, that's fair game. I think the Ukrainians are 100% entitled to damage that without creating panic and a little bit of coming from the Lukashenko regime, okay, or president or whatever. But this is not an all war, total Krieg. No, this is a controlled war. There, the Ukrainians are told how far they can hit. They're told where they should not hit. And the same with the Russians, believe me, what they can use and what they can't use. They communicate behind the sidelines, and there's the Americans and the Russians, not the Americans and the Ukrainians. Ukrainians are just executors over there. They just execute what these guys are telling them to do. So, on the Sivershchinya front, in the border areas of Bryansk and Kursk oblasts in Russia, Russian units continue to cover the areas of the Russian-Ukrainian border and conduct demonstrative and provocative actions. They're just we are here, or what? Oh my. They launched an attack using mortars near the settlements of Yanzulivka and Chernihiv Oblast from the Russian side, from the Russian territory. Again, I think that's a weasel move. On the Slobozhanskaya front, the occupiers launch attacks near the settlements of Kozacha Lopan and about 5 more, and in Kharkiv Oblast, all this, using mortars and reactive artillery. On the Kupiansk front, Russians are holding their defenses. They launch attacks using all kinds of artillery on the settlements of Kupiansk, Kurilivka, Tabaivka, and all this in Kharkiv Oblast. Last time when that's the Liman, the next one actually. There were 4 fronts where the Russians have an offensive. It was Liman, it was Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and the other one was Novopavlinka. Let's say if they still are conducting offensive operations over there, the Russians. On the Liman front, the occupiers are concentrating their main efforts on conducting offensive actions. They launched artillery attack near the settlements of Makivka and Nevske in Luhansk Oblast and Yampolivka and Torske in Donetsk Oblast. On the Bakhmut and Avdiivka fronts, the occupiers are concentrating their main efforts on conducting offensive actions. So we got 3 right now. They launch attacks using tanks, mortars, barrel and rocket artillery near the settlements of Spirne, Yakovlivka, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, like 5 more in the Donetsk Oblast. Now, on the Novopavlivka front, another offensive used to be, Russians launched attacks on positions of the armed forces of Ukraine and the districts of the settlements of Vuhledar and like 3 more in Donetsk Oblast using different types of artillery. On the Kryvyi Rih and Kherson fronts, Russians are conducting positional defense and continuously launching artillery attacks on the units of the Ukrainian forces and the settlements on the right bank of the Dnieper River, and in particular in the city of Kherson. On the Zaporozhye front, Russians are holding the defense. they launched attacks using artillery of different calibers near the settlements of Zaporozhye Oblast. The occupiers continue to suffer losses. Local hospital in the Shchia district of Luhansk Oblast are overloaded due to a large number of injured occupiers. Russians have had to conduct medical evacuations of injured soldiers to the city of Luhansk. A strike on the Russian facility was confirmed near the settlements of Svatove on November 25. There were about 70 Russian soldiers there. The number of occupiers killed and injured is being confirmed. Ukrainian rocket and artillery units struck 3 districts of the concentration of personnel, armament and military equipment of Russians. No civilians killed whatsoever. Surgically bombardments and attacks, shellings and all that. So this is a little general update on the front with the losses. Obviously the Russians are destroying the civilians and civilian infrastructure. The Ukrainians are hitting only military Russian targets. Go figure. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth and be just.